And welcome, boys and girls, to the final finale edition of the Freeman Week College Basketball. It's Final Four week, Kai. I can really talk. I've lost all sleep, all heart after living in a desert the last 2 weekends. And we go back for a third time where Jim already resides, scoping it out in our satellite location, I guess we'll call it. We'll have the official Airbnb satellite location as well. Mr. McKeon, how are you doing? Your thoughts looking ahead to the weekend that will be?
I'm doing well. Not our final podcast, but a podcast
Of the
It's our final
season.
podcast
Of the
ever.
season.
It's it.
Thank you.
It's the last
before
one.
before the final game on Monday. Yeah, Monday, April 7th or 8th. Excuse me. Very late this year. Final Four. Yes, Matt and I head out tomorrow to join Jim in the desert. Is our third cross country flight in 3 weeks. We are very tired. I am sick and tired of traveling, but I am very excited for the Final Four. It is our fourth ever Final Four covering it as media. Jim, hooray!
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I went to a couple Final Fours before that. I went to 18 in San Antonio as a fanboy. Matt and I were out at 2015 in Indianapolis as fanboys. But yeah, it's a little cooler when you get to be in the belly of the beast at the stadium. It's an odd location this year because the stadium is so
It's
far
a
away
trash
from
location, Jim. Let's
basically
just
where
call it what
everybody
it
else is
is.
staying. Yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
trash
San Antonio,
location.
New Orleans, Indianapolis, potentially Vegas,
Right
Detroit.
there.
Actually, a lot more consolidated. That's more fun. We prefer that.
When we get big enough, and help us get big by liking and subscribing, by the way, we will wield our influence and make that a mandatory 3-year round robin rotation. That's first in our part, among many other big changes that we have in store. But before we get there, we're going to talk the current, the here, and the now on today's episode. Final Four, upcoming peak, and a quick reflection of the Sweet 16, a super Sweet 16 for favorites and chalk and all of the heavy hitters, which I think is what most of us want, right? In the bracket shakedown. Well, anyway, we'll discuss that and get to your reviews at the very end. But before we do that, we promote those who promote us. Thank you, Joe Paskoff, aka Joe Pitty, the GOAT of the intro, outro, college basketball music realm. Please follow us on Twitter. That's at 3MW_CBB. The same handle applies on Instagram, where Kyle will be taking lots of pictures of us doing funny stuff and videos of me and Jim freestyling this weekend at the Final Four. So do subscribe to that or follow us. And then also, again, I'll say it 3 more times this episode, to this YouTube channel. Thank you, YouTube, for setting us up. Reviews, as I said, will come at the end.
There's none though.
We are
today.
going.
No reviews today, actually. Yes. So
No,
that's good.
No news is good news. That's what they say.
No news
I
is
heard
good
something.
news. Yeah,
Right,
sure.
of course. No bad news is good news.
Uh-huh.
But that's fine. A shorter and sweeter podcast for us. More time to look ahead to the league. But before we get there, let's round it up.
Let's do it, Matthew. Let's talk news and notes around the world of college basketball. But before we do, we must give a hat tip to the wonderful fine folks at CVB Analytics, Kai, a terrific statistical website.
It sure is, Jim. It's taken the world by storm. CBBAnalytics.com, the best 30,000-foot view of the numbers in college hoops. More than 25 Division I coaching staffs have signed up for CBB Analytics to utilize it in their scouting and their game planning. I've not verified this, but all those teams won. Haha, yes, good. It's a useful website for sports bettors, for casual fans, and for diehard fans. You're going to love this website if you like conditional formatting, looking at stats in cool ways, charts and graphs, on-off numbers. All kinds of stuff can be found on cbbanalytics.com. And of course, we have a promo code. Yes, a promo code that provides you with $40 off your subscription fee. If you want to just go on there and check it out, play around with it, the promo code is WEAVE, WEAVE, WEAVE. Use it at checkout to get $40 off your subscription fee. Again, that is cbbanalytics.com.
Yeah, that's right, Kai. Thank you for that wonderful ad read. Let's talk news and notes here. Key headlines, not really. We're talking coaching news. We will again have a coaching higher grades episode later in the off season. But for now, we'll quick mention Louisville finally settled on a guy. It is their number one choice, Kai. First choice. We know he was the one they had circled all along. Pat Kelsey headed to the Cardinals. And look, I razzed this, but I think we all agree this is a home run choice. He's going to win there. He's already shown the energy level necessary to do so, the interest in coaching the program that Kenny Payne seemed to lack. So yeah, great hire for the Cards.
Look at the
And he's
difference.
bringing dogs with him from Charleston. That's a great.
Well,
start.
look at the difference already, man. Like the energy level Jim just said, It's so much different than Kenny Payne. Pat Kelsey is a great coach, and he's an even better motivator and a fan base energizer. Louisville, it's a fantastic hire. Yeah, he's already gotten Rain Smith, Ben Burnham, I think, from Charleston, and now Terrence Edwards. Hey, he's recruiting guards. That's important.
Whoa, the novel concept for the Louisville basketball team. Happy to see that change. Oklahoma State, Matthew, with kind of a stealthy surprise hire, Steve Lutz. Only 1 year at Western Kentucky. This is kind of the
Yep.
Danny Sprinkle route. 2 years mid-major, make the tournament both times, then get to another mid-major, make the tournament at Western Kentucky. 3 for 3 in conference tournaments. I'm sure that was somewhat appealing for a team that has struggled to get to the postseason. We respect Lutz, former Matt
We
Painter
love Lutz.
assistant, really good coach. Yep.
We are in love with Lutz.
Dinger.
Hi.
Dinger, home run.
Wow. So this
Home
is my
run.
concern. I worry that we all love all of these mid-major low guy up higher, and I feel like they're all just good so far. Like 95% have been. I feel like there's been very few.
It's a smart hiring cycle for the most part.
There's not a ton of like retread of guys with prominent power established names, which I think is part of just the way the market is, but I think also just smart, the way the game's changing. Anyway, all that more to come, as Jim mentioned on our coaching episode.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Andy Enfield officially to SMU. We floated that notion, the rumor that was strongly out there last week. It is now official. No surprise there. Parachute-esque. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Curious what USC does. And we can mention right here, guy, the rumor is Eric Musselman. I guess apparently he wants out of Arkansas. He's interviewed at a couple other places. West Coast makes a little bit of sense. He had some pro coaching experience out there. He started at Nevada in the college ranks. So I could see that one adding up and making sense for both sides if it happens.
Yeah, I think Enfield a slight upgrade over Lanier. I think Musselman a big upgrade over Enfield. So both schools win. There you go.
Win, win, win. The Enfield zone is now in Dallas,
Yeah.
folks.
Should be good for
Enjoy
SMU.
Pony Express. Yeah, yeah. Hey, that's higher than they have been recently. Wazoo, Matthew, hired your boy, David Riley, a man you had a torrid love affair with in the preseason and throughout the season. Fortunately, they came up short in the Big Sky tournament once again, but we know the bona fides of Riley's resume are pretty darn strong, especially in the regular season.
Yeah, they're awesome. I've kind of waxed poetic about this whole like Pac Northwest coaching tree with ties to the Eastern Washington and then the D2 schools in that pocket. So this is Riley's my guy. I mean, Eastern Washington has completely shattered expectations the last 2 years despite postseason shortcomings, which is the recipe to finding a diamond in the rough head coach, in my not so humble opinion.
It is weird to me that Matt Logie was the first choice and not David Riley. I would rather have Riley, a longer track record. Logie, great coach too, but
I would too.
Logie had great success too at a previous D2. I mean, he killed it, but Riley's had great success over the last couple of years in the Big Sky. It's a good hire here.
Yeah, Matty loves his Jim Hayford coaching tree. Chris Victor at Seattle has been
Victor's
terrific.
been great. Yep.
Obviously, Leggins, your boy, David Riley, also your other boy. So yeah, good hires so far. Utah State continuing that tradition, I'd say. Jared Calhoun from Youngstown State. Utah State has hit like 3 straight home runs. So for them to sniff out a guy who is very, very strong in a tough Horizon job, it's geographically odd, Matthias, but I think it's still going to work out pretty well for the Aggies as they continue to be terrific in the coaching hire department.
Yeah, it's just a good job and it's a good coach. Like I think the track record speaks for itself. Hard to doubt this one. I did feel like I don't know. I feel like we have these like geographical pigeonhole perceptions of maybe we just should get out of that. Like if you can coach, unless you have like super deep recruiting ties to an area close to you. But yeah, I think Calhoun will get transfers as he has the last 2 years at Youngstown and probably crush it.
Can I doubt this a little bit?
Yeah, it's fair. I think this is one of I wasn't as geeked about this one.
Calhoun was okay for 5 years in Youngstown. Not a great job, obviously. Then he figured out the transfer portal. So maybe the newfound knowledge of that and like able to navigate the waters of the transfer portal makes him a good hire. But he was just okay for most of his coaching career.
Yeah, I would say the jobs in Utah are also somewhat unique because it is a unique place to live. You got to be able to tap into the Mormon community because they have a lot of great athletes, but BYU, Utah are going to be fighting for those players as well. I guess, yeah, sure. We can be a little bit tepid on that one or hesitant as it goes forth. Just not really the job I expected Calhoun to get. I thought maybe he'd be in the mix for like James Madison or something out east, more in his geographical ballpark. Assistant news, Dusty May, Matthew bringing Mike Boynton with him from Oklahoma State. I guess not from Oklahoma State, from the unemployment line is technically where he was. But it seems smart to have a guy with power conference coaching experience on your staff in the Big Ten.
Yeah, a guy who can recruit for sure. And I think, what offensive coaching debates aside, I think we agree he was a very good defensive coach. Now, he had monster rim protectors in all of those years in which he had like top 25 defenses, but still his defenses, I think, for Dusty coming off the year he had where FAU did not defend, I think this feels like a good complementary hire if Boyden kind of assumes some of the defensive stuff.
Yeah, and Kai, we've seen every time you talk to an Oklahoma State player, they interview him, they're like, I am in love with Mike Boynton.
Yeah,
So
everyone
it
loves
seems
him. Yep. Yep.
to breed loyalty and just a generally good dude there.
Mm-hmm.
Mid-major hires, the most interesting one to me here is Charleston hiring Chris Mack, essentially trading jobs with Pat Kelsey. I mean, Mack was at Louisville before, obviously not the most recent coach there, but he is headed to Charleston. Matt loves that city, loves that job.
Hmm.
Your thoughts on Mac resurrecting his career at a place that Kelsey's already built a sweet foundation?
Another fantastic hire. Chris Mack has been a proven winner in every single spot. I know the Louisville thing didn't work out for him, but it's not like he did a bad job his final year. I mean, he was still a lot better than what Kenny Payne did. So great hire. I think he's going to do very well there.
Great hire.
Just don't get blackmailed by your assistants. That's my advice.
Yeah, that's a key.
Let's avoid doing that. Yep. Drake with a somewhat out of the box hire, maybe not all the way out of the box, but Ben McCollum from D2 powerhouse Northwest Missouri State had been rumored for so many jobs over and over. We've kind of speculated on this pod, like he's a bad interviewer, what's going on there. But now he gets the Drake job, and I'm extremely intrigued to see how that works. He's like universally respected by every single coach, like the offensive bona fides. People are just like, yeah, I want to learn his system. So that could be fun at Drake. Obviously, a place with also a rock solid foundation from what Darian DeVries and 1 year of Nico Medved did there.
He's won 4 national titles at the D2 level, Northwest Missouri State.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a fluke to me, Kai. It doesn't sound like a one-time oddity, one-time lucky run. Yeah,
394 and 91, 81. I mean, that's just like insane.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, every year it's like 25, 28, 30, 34, 31, 20. Yeah, it's just insane. I think he will win. We've seen like this blueprint before. The guys who win at an insane level are going to at least be competitive right away.
I think he's just, profiting off that insane talent-rich Northwest Missouri region.
That's right.
There's so many nationally elite recruits there that he's locking in. I kid. Southern Illinois hired Scott Nagy from Wright State. Fellows, we did question, especially you guys questioned the canning of Brian Mullins. But boy, this feels like a pretty solid backup plan, Matthew. You are an SIU and Missouri State aficionado. Your thoughts on Nagy headed to Carbondale?
Yeah, well, I mean, I love this. Obviously, the Mullins firing was highly questionable, and I think the fact that they took so long raised the bar, and I think they just hit that bar with Nagy. Like anything below Nagy, I would have been like, why'd you guys fire Mullins? Like you got a good thing going there. But I love Nagy. Maybe I'm too high on him, Kai. I know he hasn't played defense in 4 years, but I think that's a roster construction issue that he'll correct in the Valley. Maybe I'm wrong.
That's going to be interesting. It's going to be a totally 180 on what we're used to SIU. It's going to be an offensive team now, not a defensive team that it has kind of been the last couple of years. That style is kind of permeating through the Valley a little bit with Indiana State.
The Valley's changing. You're right.
Yeah,
that's
with Murray and UIC coming in. Like there's a little bit more of that up-tempo-ness, Belmont, but we'll see how Nagy does there.
Yeah, it's odd. The last 3 years especially have been so offensive heavy for Nagy, but he's had some pretty good defenses there. He's had 2 different top 100 defenses. He had a top 50-ish defense in 2018. So maybe he's kind of the flexible chameleon type that actually adjusts based on his personnel. Oh, imagine that. Duquesne hired Drew Joyce III, assistant, had been under Keith Dambrot. No surprise here. Why not elevate somebody after a very successful run? Shout out to Mr. Joyce. A lot of love for him in the coaching community when he got this job. Like assistants and coaches that I didn't even know were connected to him, giving him congrats on Twitter. Went to high school at the Bron. Folks, start the Bronny to Duquesne campaign now. Yeah, would love it.
Don't go to Duquesne. Come on.
That'd be awesome.
Oh, I would love that. If LeBron dumping a bunch of NIL money into that program.
And guess what? He will not be an all A10 player.
Wow. I think he'll be a solid player. Sure. Yeah, I think he'll be a really good A10 player. I think he will be.
He will not be all A10. He will not make an all-conference team.
Okay, whatever. Bronny Jr. becomes fun next year if he goes to Duquesne. He was like the annoying, overrated nerd, which, by the way, it fills out pretty quickly. Like, it wasn't really ever a thing after December, but I think it'd be actually fun at Duquesne. I'd enjoy that.
Yeah, I would enjoy it. Just kind of a curiosity, like getting a different school off the map, like all kinds of love and interest. I would be all right with that.
It feels
Western
a lot like,
Kentucky,
oh, Jim, real quick, like Porter to Drew Valentine, Dan Brought to Joyce, like young,
yeah,
like specialist type assistant that just is universally beloved. Like I feel like the institutional success they've had recently, at least under Dan Brought, should probably help them. I don't know.
yep, I buy that. Western Kentucky promoted Hank Plona, who was an assistant under Steve Letts, helped him get a couple key JUCO recruits. He won like crazy at the junior college level. This is one, fellas, that I'm going to be tepid on. I think at certain
Wow.
junior colleges, you can just overwhelm with talent. And I think that's what he was doing. I mean, he had two CUSA players, two NCAA tournament players on his team in his last stop. I believe it was Indian Hills was where he was.
Hmm.
Some of those just feel like factories with the amount of talent that they get. So
Yep,
I'm
I buy that.
hesitant. I'm not canning this higher, but I'm hesitant
He's
right now.
won 87% of his games at the JUCO level 8 years. Wow. Pretty
Yeah,
impressive.
pretty darn good. Those
Jim, how about Rick Cabrera as a comparison? Right, dominant JUCO guy, skeptical.
Different level of school.
Yeah, but I think you could argue Cabrera. I mean, Cabrera was a factory too at Northwest Florida State. He did not do a good job this year. I don't think it's too harsh. I thought he was kind of
His talent
this
was
year.
very bad, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
got to
it's
have
part of it.
talent. And well, that's if
Part
they're
of
winning
it.
with talent at the junior college level, it's tougher to overwhelm with
Yeah.
talent.
It's
at the
Northwestern
D1.
State. I digress. Fair point, Kai. It's
Yeah.
Northwestern State. Fair.
Pepperdine hired Ed Schilling from Grand Canyon. I believe he's a former head coach elsewhere as well. I should have confirmed that, but he is headed out to Malibu. And Sienna confirming the Jerry McNamara hire was mentioned as a rumor here on the pod. And yes, that is official. So those are your coaching hire roundups.
Jim, he was at a Wright State, just to clarify for you.
Hey, good week for Wright State
He was
coaches,
fine,
Mr.
man.
Nagy, Mr. Schilling. Well done.
Yeah.
Matt, quick recruiting note. Your boys at Indiana secured a top 30 recruit. I didn't know there were top 30 recruits available still in the class of 2024, but Bryson Tucker headed to your Hoosiers, potentially filling the scholarship left vacant by Liam McNeely.
Yeah, all my friends love him. All the locals love him. His
Oh,
dad
I
had
thought
some
that was
funny
just
quotes.
all my friends love him.
All my people. His dad had a funny quote that, like, I think he described his son as if Jason Tatum and some other awesome NBA player had a baby, and he was just a good quote. So Bryson Tucker is the next Jason Tatum. That's what we're saying, basically.
Yeah, that's why he's a 4-star,
So
not
that's
a
nice for
5-star.
you.
Good
Yeah.
eval by everybody. Yeah, Jason Tatum, 4-star recruit. Sure, okay. Again, transfer stuff is it's just overwhelming right now. There's too much to delve into on a single podcast. We will do our roundup of transfers in the off season, best classes, worst classes, etc. Fits we like, fits we don't like. That is coming in the future. So Riley Kugel, Zeke Mayo, Michi Johnson, Doug McDaniel, etc. Wait your turn. Wait your turn. It's still a season. We're going to talk actual basketball. Other random news and notes to mention: the McDonald's All-American game was last night, Tuesday night. Fellas, I did not tune in. I am out visiting my mom. Went out to dinner with her. Did not catch it, but the MVPs were Derek Queen headed to Maryland, Dylan Harper headed to Rutgers. Saw a couple other guys had pretty big games. Boogie Fland headed to Kentucky. He had a nice little outing here. Any takeaways from either of you, or shall we just move on?
I never watched this game, Jim. I'll be honest. I don't care
It's the
about it.
first time I haven't watched it like in 10 years. The last 2 years, I found myself disappointed with, like, I didn't learn anything and actually learned less by watching.
Glorified
I did not
All-Star
watch it.
game. Just
It
like,
is, right.
Yep.
There's nothing.
I like
I
Harper.
almost think-
Harper's going to be fun. Harper's going to be a fun guy to watch next year. I'm in on Harper.
I almost think you end up with like false takeaways
Yeah.
because it's such a
Yeah.
non-basketball game. What was it, a couple of years ago, Kai, or a while back? We went to it, saw Quade Green play amazing, and
Yeah,
I think that misled my scouting report on him for years and years after the fact. But Matt, Cooper Flag, bad game for him last night.
Yeah. I saw some like defensive tweets, but then I saw some like, okay, let's just call it what it is. That was just a bad game at Cooper Flag. So
Yeah, not great from him. Liam McNeely was 0 from the field, so yeah. What's your uh-oh? Your uh-oh is that he's not
Cooper
going to
Flag
rescue
bust. Cooper Flag
Cooper Flag bust.
overrated.
You heard it here first. Yeah.
You heard it
That's
here
why we don't
first.
watch McDonald's All-American game.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see.
Exactly. Hey, the NIT final is on Thursday night, and I really like the matchup, Kai. It's the first two teams left out of the NCAA tournament, Indiana State and Seton Hall. Congrats to them for bouncing back from that disappointment and rallying for a final appearance. Indiana State, there was some cool stuff about shirts after they didn't make it. He reached out to the parents of all his players and like got film of them from high school and stuff and was like, remember why you play. Let's play for fun. Let's go enjoy playing basketball. I thought that was a really cool strategy to keep them motivated throughout this run. Super pro Indiana State crowd at Hinkle Fieldhouse. It seemed like all of Terre Haute had migrated over to Hinkle. And then Seton Hall, Sheen Holloway. He's a winner. Probably had the biggest case of any of the Big East bubble teams to be in with the win over UConn and a bunch of Q1 wins. So good to see them also rally here, Kai. I will be tuned into that game. I'm excited.
Yeah, this is like one of the very few NIT games that I'm actually kind of interested in watching. Indiana State, I'm rooting for them. I hope they win. It's heavily rumored that Schertz is going to go to SLU after this, and I'm sure a lot of Indiana State guys will go too, but I love that they get to finish out their career or their tenure at Indiana State with a potential championship. A team I wish would have made the NCAA tournament, but yeah, go Six, go Blue.
Yeah, I love they were so much fun to watch against Utah. That was an offensive powerhouse performance, Matthew.
It's Utah made like 18 of 29 from three, and Indiana State still won by 10. Like it was insane. And it's just like they're that good. It's a great narrative on both sides. Indiana State, Schertz and his posse likely going to SLU, as Kai mentioned. So it's like the last dance at ISU before they all kind of roll it back next year. They kind of have FAU next year vibes, like one of the few awesome mid-ish high major teams with the core sustaining, obviously at a different school, but I think it'll just be an obvious team that I'll just fall in love with next year. If that comes to fruition.
They will win the A10 if all those guys go. Yes.
I think so too.
And I think
if you're a SLU fan, man, if you're a SLU fan, what a fun time right now.
I was texting our buddy Defo Kai throughout the game last night, and he's just like, I am in love. I am in love.
It's an awesome team.
And he's like they might have to add a section onto Chaffetz just to add another level for the amount of fans that are going to be in the house. So yeah, should be exciting for them if indeed that is the case.
That's me. Yep.
Yeah. Knock on the wood there. All right. Let's get into some Sweet 16 Elite 8 reactions. We'll talk a little Final Four. Matthew, back to you. But of course, before we do that, we got to shout out Home Field.
Home Field Apparel. Yes, sir. You guys know what we mean when we say the words Home Field because it represents the best collegiate apparel in the entire world. They make shirts that are so comfy. I wear them every single day. They make hoodies that I love as well. They make some dad hats now, some joggers, some bomber jackets, even some jerseys are on their site. They have almost everything your little heart will desire. They have tons of schools to choose from, over 100 schools on their website, from Power 5 to D3, the big guys and the little guys. Really worth checking out, homefieldapparel.com. Of course, we will help you out when you're buying stuff from Home Field. You can use our promo code 3MW, get you 15% off your collegiate apparel at checkout. Again, homefieldapparel.com, promo code 3MW. Home Field, wear one for the team.
Thank you, Mr. McKeon. Let's talk Super Sweet 16. I'm going to lob this up to you to get us going with this discussion. It was, the headline read, awesome, hyped, much anticipated Sweet 16 with mostly letdown-ish games, but fun episodes of dominance, thus setting us up for fun Final Four. It didn't have the Cinderella slipper thing that, maybe some of us purists were seeking, but it had moments. As a Duke fan, I'd argue it had one of the more unfortunate moments, though, with the whole Jamal Shead injury completely changing the complexion of that game and potentially eradicating, maybe another giant that could have come out of, Purdue and UConn, of course. However, the Wolfpack march on.
Yeah, we had an awesome Sweet 16. We talked about it last week. 14 of the top 16 KenPom teams were in the Sweet 16. So one of the best ever by a rating standpoint. However, we got a weird Final Four. We have two lopsided games heading in. We'll talk about them. We'll preview them soon. But both teams expected to win by basically double digits. UConn and Purdue, they made it. Great. That was chalk. That's what we kind of expected and frankly hoped for. But UNC fails against Alabama. Arizona failed against Clemson, so we were robbed of the UNC-Arizona Caleb Love game. And then, Matt mentioned it, Houston, Jamal Shead, arguably the second most important player to his team in the country after Zach Edey for Purdue, gets hurt.
Sucks so much.
And then Duke sneaks by Houston despite the injury. Probably should have been a warning, Jim, about Duke that they barely won that game without Shead on the floor, because yeah, NC State they beat Duke, and as somebody pointed out on Reddit, the third straight season an ACC team that was not expected to make the Final Four, i.e., not a top 4 seed or even a high seed, makes it. UNC was an 8 seed 2 years ago, Miami a 5 seed last year, and now NC State an 11 seed in the Final Four.
Yeah, let's ignore that last year an ACC team that was ranked preseason number 1 didn't even make the tournament.
Yeah,
That's not
that's
part of the
right.
narrative. That's not in there. Duke ranked preseason number 1. God, that was a undeserving Elite Eight run. They played one good game out of their 3. I would argue. Houston missing their star player and their 2 best bench players who've been out for months. I'm with you, Kai. I wish I had interpreted that as the sign that it was that this Duke team just didn't have the guts, the it factor to make that run. NC State took full advantage of that. I watched the NC State Duke ACC tournament game and felt the exact same way that I did watching the NCAA tournament game, where it's like, yeah, one of these teams has a little more juice to it. One is just kind of lifeless, soulless. Duke didn't have fun playing basketball this year, Matthew. That was kind of a bummer to me. It stood out.
Yeah, it wasn't always fun to watch either. Yeah, I think the whole DJ Burns thing made the not fun Cinderella NC State thing more palatable, Kai. Like it wasn't like a typical like Syracuse or UCLA high seeded power Cinderella. I'll put in quotations, which I feel like always just seems to ruin the brackets. DJ Burns has made it fun, so
He's made it fun,
for that I
but
approve.
we've talked about this before. Get the Cinderellas out by the Final Four, in my opinion, because we want the best teams at the end of the day playing. NC State's had a great run. They've won 9 games in a row. They're not one of the best 4 teams in the country. They're not even one of the best 40 teams in the country right now. And I mean, that's a fact. They would be dogs to 48 teams in the country right now, at least. At the end of the season, they were outside the top 75 in KenPom. They've had a great run. They've played great basketball. They've also had some fortune, Jim. Because the Marquette game, Marquette missed. They were 4 for 31 from 3. Duke was horrible. NC State's had a bit of fortune going through this run.
Yeah, it's cool they're able to do it, and this is like the platonic ideal of why March is beloved by people. You can be an absolute piece of crap for a month and a half, as they were. They lost 10 of their final 14, and still have this incredible run to through the postseason. It's why people can dream of it. Like it just makes does it devalue analysis during the year where it's like, oh yeah, NC State's bad, but any team can just suddenly win 9 in a row. I tried to express to my friends I was non college basketball diehards, like that I was not excited really about this happening. And they're like, wait, isn't this what's supposed to be cool about March? And I was like, yes, I like that people have the opportunity, but I'm a Scrooge and I don't want them to actually do it. I don't want bad teams to actually get to this point.
You both better choose your words lightly because all of this stuff about the power conference oversaturating our tournament. Don't give what's the Big 12 commissioner's name, the Scrooge guy who we hate.
This is a
don't
power
give more wood to
conference
his
team,
fire.
though.
Don't give
Like,
more wood to his fire.
This would be different if it was George Mason 11 seed. This would be different if it was a mid-major that got led into the tournament or earned their way into the tournament. Yeah, this is just another ACC team. Like I don't know. It's a little harder for me to get excited, and I will not call them a Cinderella.
I think the reason that we feel this way is because we want the champion to be representative of the best team in college basketball at the end of the day, because we've been following the sport for the entire year. It feels almost cheap. And we said this last year with even FAU and San Diego State. It's not a good representation of
FAU so different.
The best team in the country.
I won't hear that.
But they weren't the best team in the country. If they won, it would have been kind of like, an outsider perspective. Wow, FAU, best college basketball team. They won. It's like, not really. They went on a run. They got hot.
Think? I don't care what the outsiders think. Screw them.
You put time into this. You follow the sport. You want a deserving champion. I think Purdue or UConn would be great for that. Alabama, maybe you can make a case for it. If NC State won, I would feel pretty hollow. That's just my own opinion.
Man, this feels like a fun Final Four for people that parachuted in for March.
Right.
Like,
that's true.
You didn't watch sport in February. You don't care that NC State sucked. To them, it's like an invincible team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess good for growth of game, I suppose, if you get in the best teams. But at this point,
on that note, Matt, I like that UConn and Purdue are here. Like they have been awesome all season. The Purdue narrative should be beaten to the ground. I love it. A team that loses to the 16 seed and makes it all the way back. And UConn is just like ridiculous. I don't know how they switched from like, even if you look at the roster, it's like, yeah, they got some pretty good players. Definite NBA talent, but they don't need to be this much better than everybody they play. and yet they are. So that's hat tip to Hurley, Luke Murray, Kamani Young, the entire staff. Like they have elevated them completely.
Which is sort of what I wanted in Houston, because I think the narrative of the season was like we have three sort of super teams developing. Now we know we have a super duper holy shit team in UConn and two other super teams in Houston and Purdue, one of which got decimated at the worst time, the other of which is here. But yeah, I think Houston had a great narrative too. You know, you look back to the tragic death of Richie Cheney and Jamal Shed and the walk on making the free throws. Like that was a cool thing too. I wish we had all three of those in here, but I'll take 2 out of 3, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, do we want to talk about the Elite Eight Illinois disaster, or is that just kind of
Let's
pouring
recap
a
it.
gasoline
Sure, why
on the
not?
fire?
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of went on a 30-0 run.
Yeah, it was insane. As
Illinois'
Evan
game
Mia
plan
said,
was let's shoot at Donovan Clingan's armpits as much as possible.
it was the most stubborn thing I've ever seen, Jim. And that was with an Illinois team that at the time, at this point, it feels like it's ancient history, but that was like, oh, wow, this Illinois team's like super dangerous. They could legitimate. And I think I kind of bought into that too.
I still think they are. If they played tomorrow, I still think they'd be a dangerous team. Yeah.
I just think it speaks to how good UConn is. And that's sort of, that was the turning point in the whole tournament was that game. Is like, okay, this is now a one tournament team and everyone else is trying to beat. And that's crazy to think about the tournament that also has Purdue and Zach Edey, Jim, but that UConn's legitimately on a, you know, how big the tier gap is, but they're on a new tier than Purdue.
Yeah, that's Ted Spencer in the chat just said, as somebody going to the Final Four, I want good matchups. I don't feel NC State's a good matchup for Purdue. That's kind of why UConn bums me out, is because I don't think anyone's a good matchup for them. Like they just have no flaws, have no weaknesses. That there's not like if this team does this, they can beat them. People are doing if Alabama makes 23s because they take a bunch, then perhaps they can beat them. But that's not like a UConn weakness. Like they take away the 3-point line, they guard it. It's not like something you can take advantage on them. It feels like a mere formality as we march to the UConn title, which is what I said going into last year, and they won by 17 and 13 in the Final Four. At least this year, maybe Purdue's like the worthy adversary. Kai, the one little narrative on that is like people have mentioned some of the dominant like up to the Final Four runs that have happened, like Gonzaga, like dominated every single game heading to the Final Four. 1999 Duke dominated every single game. Like there's a couple teams that didn't win. 2015 Kentucky was the same way, I guess, other than the Notre Dame game. But like a lot of those teams that didn't win the title, they lost to like the second best team that year or the third best team that year. Maybe that's going to be Purdue, but like UConn's not losing to Alabama. They're just not. Feel free to clip this. I don't care. Like they're not losing to an inferior team.
I don't think they'll lose either. No, but Purdue, arguably the most. Now, UConn won in the most impressive way, but most impressive path to this point was probably Purdue beating Gonzaga, beating Tennessee in the fashion they did. Zach Edey, I don't know why has Zach Edey become such a pariah in college basketball. It's bizarre. Nobody was talking about this last year when he won Player of the Year, and maybe it's because they lost the 16 seed. But yeah, the guy goes for 40 and 16, and it's all hate. And it's like, man, this guy is one of the best college basketball players of all time. Of all time. He's about to win his second National Player of the Year award. He has set multiple records. He's won every single award imaginable. Purdue's won a Big Ten championship, regular season and tournament, I believe, with him. Now they made a Final Four, the first since 1980. He's one of the best college basketball players of all time, and we should be celebrating that. The game with Tennessee, Matt, it was Connect, Edey, and no support at all.
Yeah,
Edey
no
needs
support.
More support against UConn.
It looked like an NBA game where I felt like it was like, ooh, which role player is going to step up and make one or two timely plays while LeBron and Giannis, insert star, kind of dictate everything that happens. I mean, no one's arguing Edey's not good. They just don't think he's enjoyable, which it sucked that the one game they probably watched him was the game where his supporting cast was largely invisible at key moments. So I was like, all right, Zach, we're going to go to you, big fella. Like we were just like sitting there laughing during the late game. They were trying to hold on that lead against Tennessee. Tennessee was starting to pressure, and Edey comes back and catches two like press break passes to make key free throws. It's like, hey, you know, Braden Smith played, Fletcher Loyer, like, where are you? Lance Jones, like, what are you doing? Like, come on.
Lance Jones did hit the kind of like
he had like that was the one shot,
but he was the one guy down the stretch besides Edey made a jumper, and it was him. At least
Tennessee had like no one, right? Like Gainey hit a few in the late run, but like they needed like one of those counter punches to stay in that game. They just didn't get it. So, very star heavy. You know, it's funny. I think that there's going to be some. I like the star power, I guess, advancing in this field. Let's talk about our lovely host at Circa quickly. Just a shout out to all the folks there who made our accommodations so lovely. Live shows. Thank you for those who tuned in, liked, subscribed. It was awesome, and got to hang out with the CEO Derek Stevens and all of his elites in posse in their little section watching games at Circuit. It was a great rinse, wash, repeat daily itinerary, Kai. Anything to add?
Well, yeah, Stadium Swim was awesome. Circa in general is awesome. If you guys haven't been out to Circa in Las Vegas, it is legit. It's basically brand new. I think it's like 5 years old. It's one of the best sports books I've ever seen. It's one of the best. It probably is the best pool I've ever seen in terms of watching games, and the place itself is just immaculate. Get yourself to Circa if you're going to Las Vegas, and yeah, we really appreciate being hosted there, and hope to do it again sometime.
Yeah, the way I always like to put it is this is a casino built around the sports book. It is the center feature of the place. You can see it from two different levels, whereas every other casino feels like they put their sports book in a corner somewhere. You got to go find it. You almost can't not see the sports book from everywhere in the casino. That's why I love it. It's like, hey, if I was going to build a casino resort, I'd build something pretty similar if I had $1 billion. So shout out to Circa. It's a great place
If
to hang.
I had $1 billion, great song. Yeah, nothing else to add. Let's talk Final Four. We're gonna be there, which will be sweet. Well, the getting to and fro won't be, but when we're there, actually in the building, it'll be sweet. And time wise, the first game, I love that it's Purdue NC State first. Like to put Zach Edey in the matinee spot is just kind of how shows you how awesome UConn is, obviously. But we will get Purdue NC State first, then Alabama UConn second before the big shebang on Monday. So we'll talk Purdue NC State first. Kai, NC State. I think we're all sort of shorting the NC State run. Does it end here? Zach Edey versus DJ Burns. Does the vending machine against the Giant have any sort of, or who wins that battle, that epic battle of heroes?
Yeah, I do think it ends. Again, we're going to repeat ourselves on several different shows across several different platforms, but I'm going to say basically the same thing I said on BBOC earlier this week on Ash Network podcast. DJ Burns is used to being a guy that can overpower opponents with his size or beat them with his quickness. I don't think he can do either with Edey. Edey is a guy that outweighs him by 25, 30 pounds. That is not normal for DJ Burns. Zach Edey has 7 inches on him, and Zach Edey is so wide that you can't really spin around him and do the cute stuff that DJ Burns loves to do and is so good at. I think Edey crushes him. On the other end, Burns is going to get in foul trouble if he's guarding him. Edey's going to do whatever he wants. The hook shot over a 6'9" Burns is not a problem. I think Edey destroys him. I think Purdue doesn't miss shots at the rate that they did against Tennessee. They're the second best three-point percentage team in the country, and they get open looks a lot because of Edey's gravity. I think Purdue has this game, Jim.
Yeah, I think the NC State defense is going to get tested way more than it did last round. I just think Duke had no real offensive plan, and NC State took away the limited things that Duke wanted to do. They got Filipowski in foul trouble, so he couldn't really attack as aggressively. That's going to be really hard to do against Purdue, whether it's fair or not. Edey avoids fouls extremely well. He plays with great verticality. He can just kind of chest you at the rim, put his arm straight up, and it's really hard to finish over the top. He doesn't do a lot of the reach down to try to swipe the ball. He's super disciplined in that regard. So it's tougher to get him to foul trouble, even with Burns going into his chest. So that's going to be difficult for NC State. Purdue runs such great offensive sets, a lot of the zoom action, the ball screen stuff, dribble handoff with Edey to get him rolling into a post-up spot. That's going to be tough to guard. I think NC State, throughout the year, because of Burns' lack of mobility, they have been very drop coveragey. They want to force the ball handler to score. So that puts some onus on Braden Smith here. Can he step into those elbow jumpers and confidently knock them down? He's done it all year. He's been terrific at that shot, kind of the Chris Paul fadeaway at the elbow. I think he's going to have them all the time in this game. Hit a couple of those, then you got to be patient when they actually do overhelp, kick out to the three, or his little step through bounce pass to Edey in the paint that he always gets is kind of like the reverse right hand. That's really tough to stop because Edey catches it right in the middle of the lane. Yeah, Matt, I'm kind of rambling on this matchup, but the point is that Purdue has a lot of edges to me.
Can I just jump in real quick on the chat? Because we like to reward the chat with responses here. So yeah, Scott goes, Burns might not guard Edey, Jara might guard Edey. That's a huge problem if Mo Jara is guarding Edey, and he's out in 3 seconds with fouls. And will they go zone?
I think you have to go Jara or Milbrow. I think you put Burns to start. That's a mistake.
Is just going to get crushed.
Yeah, Jara has no discipline in terms of reaching. He's going to try to strip Edey, and that's just how you get fouls.
In the zone, to Kevin Keats played a lot of zone at UNC Wilmington. He has not played a lot at NC State. Doesn't mean he won't break it out, but if you go zone against Purdue, Matt, Zach Edey's going to get 25 rebounds. It's just going to happen. But you might have to and just pray they miss. It's a great 3-point shooting team. They're a really hard matchup. And if you put Diarra on Edey, then Mason Gillis plays the 4, and he's one of the best 3-point shooters in the country. So what do you do?
He wasn't last game.
You're asking Burns to close out
last game.
Wide
He
open.
wasn't, right.
Throughout the year, per synergy, Purdue has faced zone 6% of the time. People have been brave enough to do it against Edey. They're scoring 1.12 points per possession. Like, they cook zones. They have the shooting, the ball movement. And the offensive rebounding, to Kai's point. I think they're a really, really tough team to zone despite Edey being there.
I almost feel like you got to do something different. I think they'll have the exact same take in the other game. Like, I think you have to, yeah. So I was going to ask you, like, Kevin Keats.
Mix stuff.
He will extend pressure. He will pass.
Right. They've pressed a lot this year, but like, it hasn't been as relentless or like in your face. It was more like delay and sort of opportunistic going for steals. Like, do they really try and dial it up here? I don't know if they have the depth, per se, but again, I think to beat a beast like Edey, you're going to have to try some different things here. Jim, you talk about the great action that Purdue runs. It's a great opportunity for Purdue if they care about their PR narrative, which I assure you they don't. Hey, we're actually really fun to play a lot of the time, but sometimes we don't play that way and we have the best player on the floor and we just give it to. That's what they did last game. I think you're going to have a little more balance this game, at least in the Monday matchup if they get there, which again comes down to the role players. Mason Gillis, you mentioned Kai, should get some butt naked, wide open threes, presumably. Got to make them. Fletcher Lawyer, Lance Jones will get some great looks too, whether they go zone or they're just running their stuff. And man, like, got to step and make some jump shots. So we'll be hawking, of course, the sight lines and ball buoyancy and the rim tightness. Your official beat reporter on the ground there. I think Purdue wins. I hope they don't put Bernsey on Edey so he can play big minutes. I think we see some fun back and forth. Maybe Burns can get some assist off Edey or something, or make some kind of nifty, I don't know, slicey type drives. But yeah, Edey's just so big, man. Edey and Klingon, the two kind of big stars in this, there's no real risk of fouling. They just don't foul. They're just really smart and they're so big they don't need to foul. So
Klingon has a little more than Edey, but yeah, you're right. On Edey, he just doesn't have to foul. He doesn't jump.
Doesn't have to.
He doesn't need to.
Matt, I'll make you fill in the blank first. Kai, you can answer too. If NC State wins because blank, like, obviously hitting some shots is the easy sort of answer, but maybe it's they compete on the offensive glass where Diarra can be good and you get Edey getting the shove foul there. Braden Smith missing some jumpers. Fletcher Lawyer maybe not having as good a game against an athletic perimeter like Casey Morsell is a really good perimeter defender. That could be an issue. What's the biggest key for you, Matt, if NC State's going to win?
I think it's not just making threes, but like Horn and Morsell, like creating stuff, like getting separation, making shots off the bounce, like getting into the teeth of the defense, forcing some help, which could allow some kick out threes. But yeah, I think that's where the edge could be, right? Like Horn, I would think Lance Jones gets that assignment, and he was definitely the best on connect. But like we saw Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer lose shooters a lot against Tennessee. So that's stay home to shooters here. Like, if you just don't let NC State get hot from three, and you make Burns go one-on-one on Edey, like, you're going to probably be fine here, Purdue. You'll be fine.
Yeah, weird Painter put Braden Smith on Connect to begin
That was also odd, too. I agree. I think, Jones right away to Horn, you don't think twice about it. Yeah.
Yeah, but Dalton Connect's also a top 5 player in the country, and he scores in everybody. Yeah, Jim, the answer is Purdue misses a lot of shots, which we've seen just last round. The NC State guards hit tough shots, which we've already seen this tournament. And then NC State extends that pressure and somehow bothers ball handlers. That's the path of them winning. And even if they do all three, I don't think that's a guarantee that they win.
Yeah, I think you've got to keep it close, absorb a punch that Purdue will probably deliver, because I think this Purdue team will get tight in the second half. If it's like a 4-point game or if they're down a basket, like, I think that's kind of what happened against Tennessee. Is it was right in there and the other 4 guys were like, well, we don't want to lose by not giving it to Edey, so we are just going to never shoot and only give it to Edey. And you got to get them in that, like, back into a close game, backs against the wall kind of thing. Kai, you mentioned, I just kind of responding to Scott here about Burns' spin move stuff. The spin works super well against people that have to, like, lean on him because they're weaker. Like, you have to fight the back down, and then he spins and you're, like, off balance. Edie can take the back down to his chest and just deal with it.
He's a
And
tree.
he's not gonna have to lean, so he can't spin off the contact the same way. Yeah, I think that sort of derails the effectiveness of that.
Even if he
This
does,
is
he still has 7 inches on him
yeah.
and a hand. Like he could
Yep.
get past him, and the shot will still be altered.
We
It's
we
Super
saw Burns
contested.
knock down some like not mid range, kind of mid ranges, like floater mid range. Like he's gonna have to shoot a lot of
he has a
those.
little
Kind
bit,
of
yeah.
catch it to up
Yep.
to 15. I think early in the game you'll see Edie kind of okay. There's your shot, big guy. Let's see if you got it. And Burns will probably take a couple. If he makes them, it's like okay, then maybe Purdue has to adjust. But if he's missing those, I think it sort of just sets the tone. Like you're not coming in here. Let's be honest. Maybe Burns really goes hard at him in the post once, but I think he'll be rudely awakened. To put it nicely. So yeah, homie, he's crafty though. We'll see. I just think it's too much, man. He's
That,
just such a different
the
dude.
Tennessee game, when Adu and Waka were shooting those shots, it was like, go ahead. Like, this is exactly what we want you to do. And they hit one or two of them, and it wasn't
Yeah.
effective. And Burns is better than
Yeah,
those two
and
players to that shot, but they are fine if Burns is taking 10 footers, and that's the game plan.
yeah, like Adu has made that shot fairly consistently this year. Like he's been an okay mid-range shooter, but then I think he got one tipped by Edie's length, and the next two he shot like into the clouds. Like it clearly affected the trajectory of his shot. So I think that it's going to be tough for them to shoot that consistently. And then even like if Burns hits a couple jumpers, like remember Gonzaga 2 different times this year, Graham Ike hit threes early in the game, 2 of them. And it was like, oh, is Purdue going to have to close out to him? Purdue is going to trust the math. They're going to be like, Burns, you have to hit 8 of those. If you hit 2, we're not going to change what we do. If you hit 4, we're probably not going to change what we do. You have to keep making that. I think that's kind of the coaching factors is they don't panic, at least in that defensive end. Offensively, I've seen them panic a little bit, but no, I guess that's my last point.
Yeah, and then like offensive rebounding. I mean, good luck. All right, let's pivot real quick to the next game, which I think for my money will be the more exciting, more enticing game.
Should be.
Alabama against UConn. Jim, I like framing this in the context of like, what do we think is going to happen versus if you're a coach on either side, how would you try and play this game out? How do we think Oates will attack UConn? How would we attack UConn if we were Oates? I've been kind of saying all week, again, similar to my theme of do something different as a double-digit dog in a Final Four. Like, what else do you have to lose? We know the recipe for Alabama. I'm looking at their CBB analytics shot chart. Red on the outside, red on the inside, and a whole lot of blue in between. Not a lot of mid-rangers. And you can, when you watch them play closely, you can see how many they like clearly pass up to like try and knife their way to the rim and get like a hard drive, like reverse. Cause they're so like Estrada and Sears are so good at kind of getting those angles around the baseline and then like kind of scooping it up when they get close. Even their bigs are pretty efficient in that way, especially coming off the offensive glass. Do we think we have Oates clearly dial up some, hey, let's try and get these guys in pick and rolls, especially clinging more of a drop type coverage. Let's take those open mid rangers like Mark Sears. It's not what we preach, but I know you can make it. Hey, Aaron Estrada, I know it's not what we preach because you're not going to do what Illinois did. You cannot look at that tape and come away from any other approach, in my opinion. So I don't know your thoughts on Oates and where his mindset should be.
Yeah, I think offensively, he's not going to like encourage mid range, but he's going to say like, look, you got to take the floater if it's there. And I think both Sears and Estrada have that. You got to get it over the shot blocker. You're not going to finish through Klingon. I think part of their strategy with going at the rim so frequently is, all right, force the shot blocker to come over. And that's when you get some of those offensive rebounds, like for Pringle, for Nelson. If Klingon's jumping at Sears, then, maybe you get offensive boards. But like in the Illinois game, those weren't there because they weren't even getting to the rim. Like he was just eating them before they even got up on the glass. And Alabama, I think, is going to want to try to drive into gaps, force help, get a lot of those kick out threes, get paint touches. But UConn, like, decidedly does not overhelp off shooters. Like, they don't give up that many threes. It's clearly a Hurley point of emphasis. We don't want to be in rotation. We don't want, like, one guy overhelping and then we got to scramble all the way around and you get an open shot on the perimeter. Like, they're just going to make the guy getting into the lane beat them. That's really tough. It's just tough when you've got such a tall back line, massive shot blocker. So Matt, I think like the only logical conclusion to all of that is yes, we've got to take mid-rangers. It's just so against what Oates wants to do
Right.
that it's going to be tricky. Looking at the numbers this year, UConn has given up mid-rangers at a top 80 rate in the country. They like to force you into that range. Maybe Alabama settles into it, but Kai, like, does it affect them that they haven't taken that shot all season? It hasn't been a game shot for those guys. So suddenly flipping to it in a football stadium, is that going to make it a tougher depth perception finish?
I weirdly like Alabama against Illinois, UConn better than Illinois because of the true point guard. Mark Sears is a true point guard, a floor general. I think that matters versus the Illinois lack of point guard uh, uh, situation against UConn. That I thought would be a problem in earlier rounds, but didn't come up until UConn. Not saying that's why they lost, but I think Sears being the creator that he is helps a little bit there. I think Alabama's going to find shots on the perimeter. I know UConn's really good at denying them, but I think they will find their looks. Will they be clean all the time? Probably not. But we know they're going to take them. They will take 30 to 40
Yeah.
threes in this game. And that's high variance. That's how they can hang around if there's any possibility of them hanging around. Top 20 in the country in three-point attempt rate, 21st in three-point percentage. I think that will be their emphasis. It has to be. It's the only way they can win. They can't beat UConn at the rim. Transition is another area they can potentially score in. However, that usually comes off the glass, and UConn is a fantastic offensive rebounding team. Alabama's not a good defensive rebounding team. UConn doesn't really turn the ball over, so transition opportunity is going to be kind of tough for Alabama to get started. And UConn's a great transition defense, so it has to be threes. That's pretty much the answer, Matt. I fear Alabama can't stop UConn whatsoever. UConn's their off-ball movement, their cutting, it's very, very good. It will likely tear apart an Alabama defense that I consider to be a bit undisciplined.
Yeah, it's very helter-skelter.
Yeah, but again,
Right.
if Alabama gets hot, they can hang. UConn wins this game, in my opinion.
You're going to have to be helter-skelter in some way here. Like, I don't know. See, Jim, this is where I think you made the pragmatic points of like, yeah, even if Alabama shoots a ton of threes, like, well, that's going to lead to, long rebounds and easy transition for UConn. They're just going to crush you with that, right? Like, well, how are you going to turn them over? They're not really going to turn it over, are they? It's like, but at least Bama brings like a different gravy, as our friends across the pond would say, in terms of the defenses they've seen in this run. But I really want to go back to Kai's point about UConn's defensive presence on the perimeter, right? How do they limit threes, or at least limit the quality of looks of Bama's threes? Steph Castle has been, I think, just very much underappreciated. And everyone was talking about Andre Jackson last year being kind of the Swiss Army knife for that UConn team. I mean, they're not the same player, but they're very similar in their Swiss Army knife type of tendencies. They're locked down defensively. They initiate offense, they can score, and they kind of just bring that NBA athlete type of talent, which we know Bama has, talent for day, or, leapers for days. I think Castle can, sort of matches up with that general MO of what Bama's whole wing and frontline corps is basically.
Core.
Oh, I
Core.
thought
Sorry,
you were going
corpse.
to Kai.
Core.
Core.
Is Bama a
The
corpse in
corpse.
this game, Jim? That's my question to you. Are they a corpse in this
Potentially.
game?
I fear a little bit. I think we talked kind of analyzing hard how Alabama's going to score. They're going to get jump shots. They're going to take a lot of them. The other end is where, like, I think they have no chance defensively, as you're kind of referring to. UConn runs such wonderful stuff. There's a set this morning I saw on Twitter of them running like ball screen into a stagger, which turned into a twist for a guy coming off the top. And then the other end, they ran a veer into a dribble handoff, and like they end up getting a floater out of it. They just like, they run that stuff. And to the staff's credit, it doesn't feel robotic. Like sometimes teams run all these intricate sets and people are just thinking about where they have to go next. But UConn does it in a way that they feel empowered to improvise off of it or take a counter if the team's overplaying a certain type of cut. And you add to that the individual talent. They've got big time shot makers in Spencer and Caravan, and Newton's a great individual scorer. You add the unselfishness where every guy on the court is ready to make the next fun extra pass that leads to a highlight. Like Klingon had one in the Illinois 30-0 run. They threw it to him in the post, and he immediately dropped a little bounce pass to a cutter. And it's just like the joy they play with, the sharing of the ball. Alabama has been bad defensively all year, much better in this tournament. I still think they face a little bit of a colossal task, given how it's just a juggernaut UConn's offense is, Kai. Now the number one ranked by Ken Pom. And it's because of all of that. Like they have an interior weapon. They can post you up. They got ball screen creators for days. They got shooters. They got ball mover. It's a buzzsaw. I don't see how they score less than like 1.1 points per possession in this game.
Yeah. If they don't shoot well, they haven't shot well, really, this tournament. I mean, to their ability, I would say. But Matt, the offensive rebounding, I go back to that. they're going to crush Alabama on the glass. So it's going to be, we're going to score somehow. We're going to hit shots. We're going to play through Klingon. We're going to cut you to death and ball screen you to death, or we're just going to grab our misses. We're going to score. It's going to be a high possession game, high scoring game.
Yeah, I keep going back to the Steph Castle versus Mark Sears. Kind of talking about how important Sears is. Like, I assume that's going to be the Castle will be slated on Sears. Yeah, see, I wish Bama had a third guard. Like Latrell's, we talked about Latrell Wrightsell supposed to play. And Ryan Griffin's more of a wing. Like whoever that Cam Spencer is guarding, like he's still a very solid defender, but he can be exploited off the bounce. I think what makes him a great defender is his just like instincts and off ball stuff. On the ball, he's good, but not like terrifying. Newton's really good and Castle's great. You'd like them to have that third guard that can maybe kind of isolate Spencer or just take him off the bounce. Because even on the perimeter, you look at those matchups between Newton and Castle, like that's not exactly a great, you don't feel great about that, even with Sears and Estrada as good as they are. So I think this game's going to be close, even though I have no good reason for it, as I just basically convinced myself that UConn should win by 20. Kai, quick data point here I think I mentioned this on our action show. The last 4 times that we've seen a favorite of this big, basically last 4 times we've seen a matchup that's this lopsided on paper, all 4 times the better team has won, but it's been a close game. I think the most recent precedent being Gonzaga versus UCLA in 2021. Now, UCLA versus that Bama team, just different in general. And I think this UConn team is also probably better than that Gonzaga team at that point relative to the fields. But I think that's worth noting. I think you can say there's probably something to the fact that you got this far. You're probably not going to get blown out, even though everything that we just discussed sort of makes me think they will. Jim?
I hope they don't. I want a game, man. I want to see 2 good games. Well, I want to see Purdue and UConn in the finals. So I guess I'll take blowouts if that's what that means. But
yeah, as I say, would you sacrifice the semifinal games for a better Monday night game that Matt will 100%. Probably not be at? What a loser.
Yeah, Matt's skipping the championship game. Everyone, please troll him. It's
all the cool kids get out of town.
If you see Matt in Scottsdale and Phoenix at the stadium, that needs to be your first thing. Make fun of him for skipping the championship game as a college basketball diehard.
Or compliment me for being the team player who secures both of you 1/2 of courtside access with our credential.
This is such a little crutch you lean on.
But it's also a beneficiary for both of you. It's a win-win-win for all parties. I want to get the hell out of there. I'm tired of being in the desert.
You could have a third of the courtside.
No, but there's 2 halves in the championship game, and we usually only get one of those of our 3. Yes. So one person gets the dope seat for the first half, the other person gets the dope seat in the second half, and the third person is just a nice guy.
It's not win-win-win because I would like to have my friend in Phoenix.
That was
title
game.
I know. I'll take that over 8 extra minutes at the
for this reason,
which we don't even know for sure we'll get. We don't know for sure we'll get.
Exactly.
That's not a guarantee every time.
Oh man, if it's Purdue UConn, you gotta stay. That's going to be one of the best games of the entire season. Maybe the
Klingon
best.
versus Edie.
Klingon, King Kong, Godzilla, Kaiju matchup. Oh, the stories they could write from that matchup of the 2 big men going at it. I love it. I hope we get that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we don't need to like break down all 4 theoretical title matchups, but I am interested a little in, because of the likelihood of UConn Purdue, it's like a minus 300 favorite, 250 that we're going to get that matchup based on moneyline parlay odds. I just think the UConn guards overwhelmed. I know they don't really pressure.
Yep, I agree. That's the difference.
It's just
for sure
the efficiency and the trust factor I have with those guards and the size. Like Tristan Newton is going to be guarded by a 6'1" guy. He's going to be able to shoot over him. Cam Spencer's going to be guarded by a 6'1" guy, probably be able to shoot over him. Castle, if he's not the one with Lawyer on him, he's going to have ISO ball dominance. They spread out the court when Castle has a mismatch and he catches it at like the free throw line. ISO attack off the bounce. UConn's is too excellent, and I think the numbers when Hurley is in the tournament and the other team has 1 day to prepare, like the quick turnarounds,
right? That's
the
what's
second
tough.
round,
Exactly.
The Elite Eight.
Yes,
every one of those has been a complete obliteration.
Yep.
So I would anticipate even Purdue, another tough team to prepare for because all their sets. You just need more time to deal with UConn. And Matt, to your point, you always talk about it. Like that's why the Big East teams do better against UConn because they see them twice a year. Familiarity, they're well scouted. It's so tough for a non-conference team to keep up with that.
And to be honest, even this year, they didn't exactly do that well. I mean, since Klingon's been healthy and Castle's been healthy, basically the 2024 calendar year, it was only Creighton who shot a bajillion from 3 at their place that got him. So
Yeah, this is dumb, but this should have been the Kai. We talked about the sign of Creighton not, or excuse me, Duke not coming or controlling a game against Houston without Shed. The sign for me at UConn, they were different. Was Creighton shoots the absolute piss out of the ball,
Yep.
and UConn still cuts it to 10 late. They still cut it down, made it a game with like 4 minutes left, and there were Creighton people like, oh my God, have we not won this game yet? They're not
Right,
like,
right.
this team is withstanding the 8,000 haymakers we've thrown. That should have been the one to me that fully set it off as like, this UConn team is the best. Even in a losing effort, I was so impressed with that, and that's the only loss they have since since they've been
It,
healthy.
it's funny. I have so little confidence in Purdue replicating that, Jim, even though I should, because it was literally the best 3-point shooting team in the country percentage wise. Also, sorry, they could drop to number
They're
two.
now number 2 after the
Number
Tennessee
two,
game.
yeah.
I
Um,
I think Purdue can give UConn a run for their money. I think UConn wins, but I think Purdue holds it close. Again, the Edey Klingon matchup is intriguing to me. I think Edey wins that matchup. I know Klingon will take that personally. I think both guys will, frankly. I think they both see each other as challengers, and there's a little bit of argument of who gets the better of who. Klingon fouls more than Edey. Doesn't foul a lot, but he fouls more than Edey. I think Edey can get
yep.
him in foul trouble. I think he destroys Samson Johnson. Like, that's not even a battle. Johnson, great shot blocker, too skinny, can't handle Edey. So it'll be really fun to watch. Both teams run great sets. I know everyone thinks it's throw the ball straight into Edey. It's part of it, but they also run a lot of action to get him to that point. The reposts are awesome. The action they run with their guards is really good. It's really hard to defend Purdue, even UConn, even for UConn. So I can't wait. That's going to be a great game if we get it.
That's a great point on the repost stuff, Kai. I think we said it to each other when we were watching them over the weekend. Just like, you even see like Estrella or Adu, the ball goes out, and even for a half second, they're like, I stopped Zach Edey. And he steps right into you and gets like a one step closer. And then that turnaround half hook when he gets it back is right there. And the guards look for it like every time they're looking for that repost. It's deadly.
And they're so patient. They're just patient. It's like, don't worry, we can get a good shot whenever we want from the perimeter. We're just going to stuff it into the middle with our 7-4 guy that nobody can stop.
Jim, and Kai too, you can chime in. Final precedent I was looking at this year, I mentioned this briefly. St. John's played UConn very closely in the Big East tournament, right? That was on the second, that was a back-to-back, the semis of that tournament, 95-90. It was an absolute shootout. Notably, Donovan Klingon's lowest minute count in like the last 3 months, only played 19 minutes. I think got in early foul trouble / Hurley was just maybe being conservative / cautious with him. Because he is, again, as he said a couple of times, he's just recently gotten fully healthy after he had that foot thing. And Johns killed them on the glass. It's the only time I've seen UConn look mortal on the glass in what feels like a decade. Maybe Purdue, in a situation when Klingon gets in foul trouble, can do that with just Edey as a one-man wrecking crew. Maybe Alabama, who's a good offensive rebounding team, can do that if they get Klingon in foul trouble. I just don't see any way that happens with the Bama thing. So. Just something
they kind of like to. I mean, they love to go to the rim, but it's going to be tough for them to draw fouls. I think both underdogs need two on the 7-4 monster on the other
the
team.
Whistle's huge. Yeah, the whistle's
Alabama
huge.
needs two on Klingon. I think NC State would need two on Edey. And then suddenly both matchups get a little more interesting. So we'll see if either of that comes to fruition. Is that live betting time, Matt? If either of those happen? Yeah.
Of course. Just a note on the referees, not that I've gotten, well, we know who's going to be officiating the Final Four. We don't know who's going to be doing which game or the title game. But generally tend to be older referees, more established guys. They are not going to call like when in doubt, they just don't blow the whistle as often as sort of the younger one. And with the star power those guys have, the foul thing is such a, you're really picking for straws if that's that's your preferred strategy here. I just don't see it happening.
We just need to. Who are the refs in the Carolina Gonzaga national title game where they just said Zach
everything.
Collins banished him to the bench?
I should look at that actually. That's a great comparison.
I need them
please don't show up again for this game. Yeah, don't come to this game if that's you.
I'm looking it up right now. Mike Eads, Michael Stevens, Vern Harris, Matthew.
I don't think they're in the pool. Okay, Eads is a known guy for sure.
Vern I don't think Harris he's in the very pool, known too.
Yep, and Harris as well. Yeah. No farther thoughts. UConn beats Purdue by 4 possessions. I think it's like 8-10. I think UConn wins. Not like blows them out, but like keeps them at an alligator's arm length. Kyle, say that. How's that?
Yeah. So if you're a bettor, there are hypothetical lines out there right now for Purdue UConn. It's 5.5. It's probably what it'll be. I would take Purdue. I really think Purdue's going to keep this one close. I think we get a really good championship game if those two teams indeed make it.
I'll be the Scrooge. I think UConn wins by 15 and
Oh
15.
wow, you're gonna one off my take. I love that. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, we're
That's
safe.
good.
I think they've won 10 straight tournament games by 13 plus. I think they win another one by 13 plus.
Whoever said inevitable first, was it John Fanta? I've seen it a few times, but that's the best descriptor for UConn. They are inevitable. Right? Looked mortal for 18 minutes against Illinois, and then looked completely supernova for the last 32.
Yep.
That concludes our podcast? Question mark? No, psych. We have reviews to come, but that concludes the actual meat and discussion
No reviews
of
though,
our
this
hoop
week,
breakdown.
so you can just take it. You can just close.
And we
this
have
out.
no reviews. That's
And
actually
if you're around in Phoenix, let us know, especially
definitely.
Sunday. Kind of a hang day for us in between. So we'd love to meet more Weavers.
I
Hey, I'll
imagine
be
we'll
there.
be hanging out with the Field of 68 guys quite a bit. They're doing the Huss Brewing Company is where they're doing their shows. I don't know anything about it. I'm sure it's a cool place though. I'm hoping it's going to be a bigger brewery type of setup. We can just come and go as we please.
But if you have a cooler hang, let us know. We'll come to that one.
We are staying in Scottsdale.
We're hang free agents. Yeah.
we're
So
staying
please
in the
throw us
fun
some
area,
options.
The fun area of
Cool kid hang. Yep.
Birthplace of one Jim Root, Scottsdale. That's right, folks.
Yep.
How about that?
That's right. Matthew?
Jimmy,
go ahead.
Arizona. That concludes our podcast. Thank you all for tuning in this season. We'll come back presumably next week or the week after for a full kind of recap. And God, the portal is spinning wildly. The carousel is spinning wildly. So we actually have a lot more news to discuss earlier than usual. I hate that the portal's open right now. It's a whole other conversation that we'll talk about in the office, but it is, and action's happening, which gives us content to discuss. Thank you again for stopping by. Please like and subscribe on the way out if you're listening live. If not, thank you for tuning in on podcast form. Again, we'll see you next week.